So let's just get into it and start with, like we did last time, kind of where you grew up and what your childhood was about and how you got started playing pool and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. Grew up in, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. And first introduced to pool probably I was about 10 or so. And a friend of mine down the street had a table. And, just did everything possible to play pool in his basement. He was less enthused with it. And so it was kind of a chore.
He didn't like pool?
He liked it okay, but he was kind of a nerd and into electronics and
Nintendo or whatever.
Oh
at
no,
that time.
tube television sets, and it goes back a little ways. But anyway, and then also a scout leader had a table in the basement when I was a Boy Scout, Cub Scout, somewhere back then. And it was, it was the most amazing game that I'd ever seen. So.
How many hours did you play? You said as many as you could or whatever, but what was that like? Did you actually, how many hours did you get on different tables and that sort of thing?
Really not very many. Just just enough to really get a fire going. And wanting to play more. It was just I was drawn to it tremendously.
Yeah. And then you said also then at one point you had moved and your dad got a table.
We moved to Mount Clemens, say 30 miles away from where we were. And my dad picked up a 3x6 Valley bar table, big ball, really antiquated table, but played really great. And so, I played a lot of hours on that, probably, maybe 10 hours a week I'd like to get in. For most of my adult life, I think for the longest time I tried to get in 10 hours a week, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, so your dad and you had a straight pool match every night, right?
We did. We played straight pool, race to 50 every night after dinner for a quarter. And he played with me every night until I started beating him. And I was about 15 at the time and probably was not as gracious a winner as I should have been at 15. And so he didn't want to play anymore. He was a big baby.
And you said it sounded like that there was a pool hall too.
That well, the only pool hall in our town of 25,000 was Adams Q, and Al Adams owned this Q and this pool room, and he'd come in the evenings sometimes or the weekends. He was an insurance salesman, and he just kind of did that because he loved to play three-cushion billiards. So, and then he would instigate as much three-cushion play as he could, and myself and most of my schoolmates that played pool would also, occasionally play three-cushion. But straight pool was the big game, and snooker, 10-foot snooker tables is more than anything else. A little 9-ball and not very much 8-ball. But straight pool was the game of choice at the time.
So you played, it sounds like, everything. Billiards, snooker?
Everything except one pocket. And when I was 18 or 19, a good friend of mine that I played pool with, Mike Sardelli, was a national 8-ball champion a few years back. But this is before he came into his own, and he was one of the local favorites. We went over to the Rack and Q in Detroit one time. They have to know you in order to let you in. It's a club of sorts.
Yeah.
And there was $10,000 one pocket being played, and I thought, what a stupid game this is, and didn't even want to watch it. Just had no patience for it, wasn't mature enough to.
How far into your pool life until you took up one pocket and started loving it? Because I know that's your favorite game now.
Probably about 1990 or so.
Yeah.
I started playing Brad Gowan, get some good matches against him, and that's when I really got fired up about one pocket.
Was there a lot of action in Detroit? I mean, you talk about $10,000 matches. Was that common and that kind of matching
Seems
up?
like
And
Detroit was such a big town, and there was a lot of bar action around. Lots of really good players, and a friend of mine, a guy named Kabi Alverson, Glenn knows him pretty well. He used to have a pool room outside of the Detroit area, and he was in a township that it was grandfathered in, so he could stay open all night. And then people in Detroit would come out for after-hour play, and it was pretty. But anyway, and Kabi was a Michigan State snooker champ in the late '60s for a couple of years. And a real good player,
wow.
good friend. I still talk to him periodically.
When exactly did you move out to the West Coast, and was there any particular reason for Portland?
West Coast and Portland in particular. I had visited here when I was about 20. My brother was out here, and he and his wife originally lived in Salem. I came out for a visit for a couple of weeks. It rained the entire time I was here, and I fell in love with it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, couldn't even see Mount Hood for the whole 2 weeks I was here because it was all socked in. And then I kind of established all of his friends and got to know people from that initial group, and so it was good.
How'd you get yourself acclimated into the pool scene here in Portland?
Well, I think I was about 20 when I first moved here, 20 or 21, and I would go to Jerry's Billiards and Grand Central Bowl mostly, Amato's occasionally, but I was an up and coming player at the time, and got in. I think the first two people I played in Portland was I played Kirby. If you know who Kirby Davidson is, do you remember Kirby? He was a great player, and Leo, and I battled with and Leo Newberry. I battled with both of them. I lost a couple bucks to Leo after an 8-hour match, but he played really well. Yeah.
So you'd shared a story about what you felt like really got you hooked on pool, and really set it. Do you recall what that was?
Let's see, what was it? Refresh my memory.
Well, let me ask it blank. What do you think? Did anything really get you hooked on pool?
Just playing well, and first time I saw Dan Louie play. Absolutely. Yeah. That was a good story. Yeah. Dan Louie came to town to play the local top players, and Dave Rhodes, Leo Newberry, and Hippie Scotty. and he gave them the 7 or the 8. I think he gave Rhodes the 8 and everybody else the 7. Just tortured them. And he just played so well, and it really, it was just poetry in motion, and it kind of, just gave me a greater awareness of the beauty, simplicity, and the amount of talent and art that goes into the game. And Danny was and is a great player. So.
Yeah. So how do you think pool is different now compared to back then?
Just so much better competition, tougher players, more players that that are upper level players, and with the internet, everybody having a rating or a Fargo rating, the art of the hustle was much more prevalent, I think years ago, um, everybody pretty much knows how everybody plays, so it's tough to orchestrate easy action, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that, did you follow that very much, or go on the road, or?
Went up to Seattle a few times. Went up with Kenny Dodd a couple of times and made money up there. I think we went to Fife and lost some money, and then got in a cheap ring game and won a bunch of money back, and went up, and Kenny went up and played Jerry Johnson some one pocket, and beat him out of some money, and went down and at the 211 Club on Pike. Then there's some bars, kind of a general area, and across the street, and went and bumped heads and made some money, against some people that we had no idea who they were, and
Right.
it was, they were, indignant about, you must be a hustler and stuff like that, but playing pool for a couple bucks, mister.
Right.
So.
Our connection really seems to be going along just fine, so I do want to let the people who are watching know that if they do have questions, they're more than welcome to type them in, and I'll make sure and get to them so that Bob can answer your questions too. I wanted to ask what you think the best compliment you've ever received is.
Let's see. Oh, it was Mike Baker, and he told me that of all the people that he knew that played pool, that he didn't know anyone that loved the game more than me. And I thought that was an interesting observation. How right it was, I don't know. But
It's pretty
true.
astute.
Pretty true.
Yeah, I'd say. Do you continue to teach yourself things, and how?
I try. I more often than I used to. I'll set shots up, and hit a shot multiple times, which normally that's not something that I don't focus on any one particular shot, for too long a period of time. Position play is one thing that I strive for.
Sure.
And the closer you can put your cue ball to the quarter. When you put a piece of chalk on the table and you come up and freeze to it, after trying to do what you do, it's good. It's gratifying.
Is that how you guys get it to sit on the end rail every time when you're playing one pocket?
I'm telling you,
goodness.
I use a piece of chalk, and putting a piece of chalk when I'm practicing on the table, really gets me to take the time to look ahead far enough to see, 3 shots ahead pretty much, or better, but certainly 3 shots ahead, and it gives me really something specific to shoot for with my cue ball. And if I don't hit the piece of chalk, or if I overhit it, underhit it, or miss it, terribly, it gives me something tangible to draw from.
With the way that you do that, do you always follow the same position route, or do you mix it up and try to do different position routes to the same
I
piece
do.
of chalk?
A lot of times, sometimes when I practice, I'll shoot nothing but draw shots, or maybe nothing but follow shots, or and get around the table differently, or I'll have any one typical shot, and that's the correct way to shoot it, and I'll do something different just to have that oh really moment, where you do something that you haven't done before, because it may not be natural, but you may come up with a startling effect.
Yeah.
So it's worthwhile.
What parts of your game do you strive to improve, and what do you consider your weaknesses?
Probably my ball making ability. I want to improve on that. Actually, there's a few shots that that I actually need to work on. Some shots are pretty automatic all the time, But ball making and probably, bank better naturally.
How do you feel about the different games? Which one do you like best? And what do you think each different game teaches you?
Let's see. Well, one pocket is my favorite. One of the reasons that Efren Reyes is such a great one pocket player is not only because of his creativity, but he's really a world-class three cushion player. And so, his ability to do things and to kick balls and to work his way around the table, is really pretty unique to have, to be that good of a three cushion player and pocket balls as well. It's quite the combination.
Yeah.
So I would say, one pocket, three cushion. Straight pool is a game that you can play and build on and practice, because you're just playing against the table, and whether you have an opponent or not, it's your inning. And, you can do, 9-ball also. I really don't practice much 9-ball or 8-ball unless there's an event coming up.
Well, probably a little bit advanced. I mean, it's built your game a little beyond that rotation and.
Yeah, I just think that one pocket is so nuanced, and it really has all the different aspects of all the other games. That 9-ball, it forces you to connect the dots pretty specifically. So it's demanding in that respect. 8-ball, there's a lot of strategy, but you have so many options to getting out that I never really gave 8-ball the credence that I did some of the other games. But I've kind of gone back on that assessment as well. You can create outs and make things happen in 8-ball where there's no possible out and they still get there. So
yeah.
So it's interesting for that. But I love all the games.
That about you. What do you think is the most common mistake that average players make?
Besides missing balls.
Well, there can be sometimes, average players maybe miss balls because they're trying to do too much with the cue ball, or I know you talked before about not looking ahead enough, or.
Right. If a person, did nothing but pocket the ball every time, you could focus on that to where, you were pocketing the ball, and then move on from that, and eventually work on your shape. But knowing, where those balls are intersecting, is your first basic, I think. So. A lot of, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of, up and coming players, or more novice players anyway, people that strive to play better. And, I don't know if it's, just a matter of alignment or what, but, it's, you want to just give them 2 balls and say, roll this ball into that ball into the corner, and just nice and easy, and see if you're addressing the ball in a straight line or not, and start with that.
Yeah.
And before you do anything else.
Yeah, one of the other folks watching last time, I thought, asked a great question, which was how you and Ann play together. How do you keep it fun? How do you keep it challenging?
Well, we don't play as much as I would like. Ann, if she had a drive for pool, she would be hard. She'd be really hard to beat.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's got a lot of skill, and when her focus is on and she wants to win that game, boy, I'm betting my money on her, because she bears down really well. But to answer your question, though, she and I will play, and we'll make it interesting. She may get the break and the first shot, or ball in hand after the first shot, or something so that she has fun, and if she's running out and I'm racking the balls, I'm having fun.
Yeah.
And so it gives me an opportunity to play and for us to have fun, together, and we do that pretty well, as often as we can.
And she travels with you too to a lot of events that you participate in. How do you include her in what you're doing and
Well,
what you're striving to do?
I'd like to play a Scotch doubles with her.
Sure.
We've really only done that once at Chinook Winds. Did pretty well, but I'd like to try it again. She really encourages me to play any tournaments that are up and coming. And, I know that a lot of times for her, being in a smoky pool room is, that there are a lot of other things that we could be doing. We do a lot of, salmon fishing and crabbing and razor clam hunting and mushroom hunting. We were this weekend. So there are a lot of other yard work.
Chris's yard is beautiful. I know it doesn't take any work at all.
Yeah, right. So there's so many things that we like to do, and as much as I love pool, I don't want it to be the only thing, because life's too short.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I could play a lot more pool, but but you really have to decide, what your priorities are.
Sure.
And it's more important for me to have, to do other things and, go screw around and go for a drive to Little Creek Casino just for the, play some games and hit the oyster bar and stuff like that.
Sounds about right to me.
Yeah, it's worked pretty well.
Bob Olson asked what you consider your biggest win and also your worst loss.
Every loss is my worst loss. No.
Before you answer that,
no.
I wanted to let you know Dan Louie is watching the interview here, and he wants you to know that he's thankful that you don't play more tournaments. It gives the rest of us more of a chance to win, he says.
Man. that sounds like Danny. Thanks, Danny. You were too kind as usual.
Now, tell us your biggest win.
Oh man, edging out Glenn for that Peach Hour tour was really big. I think the first time I ever beat Dan Louie in a tournament was huge. He always makes me really want to play well,
Yeah.
and so I've really enjoyed playing him. But probably edging out Glenn for the finales of the Peach Hour.
Yeah.
I was playing quite a bit and attending, I think, all of the events, most of them anyway. And I was playing good at the time too. So.
Yeah, well, and as was he. So it's.
One really good win I forgot to mention though was I played Glenn up at what was it? It was the ACS event.
Oh, uh-huh.
And he put me in the losers bracket, like 9-8 or I think it was a 9-8 situation.
Wow.
And then I came back through and I beat him, or he had me 8-5. That's what it was. He had me 8-5, and I beat him 9-8, and then I beat him 9-0 the next set.
Oh, wow.
And Glenn just shook my hand and said, "There'll be another day." No, don't say that. But that was a really good comfort behind that.
Yeah. John Evans asked if slow players bother you.
Only John.
Well, okay, that's fair.
No, no, not so much. It depends on the game that we're playing.
Sure.
And whether or not it's intentional,
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
if you think if that's just how they play, then you know that going in, and it's less of an issue.
what do you think about while your opponent is shooting?
You know, first thing is to review why I'm sitting and not shooting, you know, and what put me there. You know, just thinking about, you know, what just took place for my last inning, and, you know, and then, you know, and concentrating on what they're doing and you know, how they're playing, how they're getting out or not, and when will I get to shoot next.
That makes sense. So, Chris Nealon asked, what created the beast that we see at the table? Yeah, let's leave it at that. What created the beast that we see at the table?
You know, I'm generally pretty competitive with, you know, pretty much everything. Any sports anyway, but pool, you know, pool is the one thing that it's been my top sport, and so it really was a great creative outlet for me. You know, feeling better about winning than you do losing, you know, that tends to stick with you. So, you know, just playing well, you know, for the sake of, you know, of pleasing myself, you know, for my own game, and playing against myself, so to speak, whether I have an opponent or not. You know, just trying to do better, and you know, the never-ending story of playing the perfect game, the perfect set, you know, that type of thing.
Does it hurt to lose?
Oh, you know, not as much as it used to. It's you know, it's never any fun. It's something that makes me a better person if I can be, you know, humble and gracious in my losing as I am when I win. So it's something that I think is good for pool if you can maintain it.
Yeah. I wanted to ask if you think a stroke is important and why.
Well, it's important because depending on your stroke is going to, you know, help you create, you know, anywhere from A to Z on any given shot. And so if you're limited in your stroke and you can only go through from A to D, you know, then it's just gonna have an impact on what you're going to be able to create. However, you know, by the same token, you know, you may be limited in your stroke, but play to the best of your, you know, make that stroke work for you.
Sure.
And overcome, you know, a poor stroke with better shooting, follow the ball more, something, you know, better position play, whatever.
How do you think a person goes about developing a stroke and making more of a stroke? Is there a life of a stroke? You said A to Z. Elaborate on that.
You know, I think there are drills that you can do to, you know, to see what your potential is on any given ball situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the same draw shot that you empower when you're 8 feet away is going to have a different result if the ball is a foot, you know, if they're a foot apart. So, you know, I think the most important thing is to determine, you know, where your capabilities are,
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to figure how to work within that potential. There's a drill that I do, and it's really, and I've shown some of the people on the APA team where you take an object ball a diamond away from the corner pocket and the cue ball 2 diamonds away,
Mm-hmm.
and you proceed to stop the ball the first time. You set it up again time after time. Stop the ball, draw the ball a diamond, draw the ball 2 diamonds, draw the ball 3 diamonds, and so forth, all the way until you draw it to the end of the table if you can.
Yeah.
If you get to the end of the table, then you maximize that stroke and see how much beyond that 8-9 feet that you can go, and then you set it up again and you have your cue ball 2 diamonds away.
Yeah.
And it's all about, you know, really dialing in what you can do in any given situation, so that in the event that you can only draw the ball back 2 diamonds and that's your max, then you're not going to try to draw it back 8 feet.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not, you know, in your wheelhouse. So, you know, it's a good thing to know.
That's a great stroke development drill
I
too.
think
like
it is.
you're
It,
talking
it
about.
really lets you feel the ball, you know, as you're, and you know, like I say, it's not, you know, whether you draw it back to the first diamond or the second diamond or whatever, you know, it's telling you something. It's a pretty easy shot, and then you set it up, you know, and then you go to the, you know, you set them up so they're 3 diamonds apart and 4 diamonds apart and so forth, you know, until you get bored or whatever.
Right.
But I found it, you know, it's a great way to really get the feel for the cue ball.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I mean, we have a lot of bar play, ultimately league play these days, and so it's almost like having a stroke is a thing of the past. The tables move so fast or whatever. I mean, do you think it makes a difference today, or?
With the Simonis cloth as opposed to the burlap that they used to use,
Right.
it's pretty amazing. Fortunately, it's pretty much the standard most everywhere too. So everybody's playing on it nowadays. As long as the tables are, you know, roll straight, you don't have to, you know, if you can start trusting a table by, you know, by shooting slow and having it roll straight, that's a good way to progress your game.
Yeah. Matt McInnes had asked about what the most amount of money you've ever played for and how you handled yourself in that match.
Let's see. Well, on a few occasions, I've won a couple $1,000 at a time. It's been about the most. Probably one of the most interesting was with, I played a guy named Fat Joe Ballantyne, and he was a local guy here in Portland back in the Amato days. I believe he was about 6'4" and 400 or 450 pounds maybe. One thing that he used to do is he would bet you that what was it, for 50 feet that he could outrun a Volkswagen from a dead stop. He was really quick out of the gate.
Wow.
He used to gamble guys where he, for a short distance, like 100 feet or something, where he bet like Pat Schumacher that he could outrun him to that spot. Anyways, he did strong arm work, and he was sometimes not regarded as a very nice boy, but I knew of him, and he'd never seen me play pool. I'd been around him a few times, and he had, about a year before that, he had played Richie Geiler, and Joe had sold a house, and I think on 2 consecutive weekends, Richie Geiler spotted him to 7 and beat him out at like 29,000.
Wow.
So I knew, you know, I knew that he was good for the cash, and so anyway, and I played him at formerly the Buzzard's Roost on a Sunday, and started out playing cheap for sets for 50, 100, 200, 500, and ended up, I think I beat him out at 2,100. So, but during the match, you know, he didn't know, you know, he was a little out of sorts. He gets on the phone and calls a couple of guys to come watch, and these 2 big guys, well, the little guy was about 6'2" and 280 pounds, and then he had this guy named Big Ron, who was, I believe, 6'11", 350, and he was just a tree trunk of a guy, and not a very nice guy. And anyway, and so I lost that set.
Were you there by yourself?
I was there by myself. I was there by myself on a Sunday morning, basically, at the Buzzard's Roost, no less. Well, I saw his Cadillac, and I decided to come in and see how things were going, and ended up playing him for 5 or 6 hours. It was pretty fun. And he paid.
And he paid. Robert Crosby asked what your favorite place to play is, past and present, all time, and current, whatever.
Family Billiards in San Francisco, probably has that. They really help my game. They've got really tight pockets.
Yeah.
Plus all the good players that are down there. But the tables play so nice. Um, they're just true and tough and very unforgiving, and really makes you shoot at the center of the hole.
Yeah, we probably need to get a list of the rooms that Ernesto takes care of.
Oh yeah, oh no doubt. I played a lot at the Rialto. I have a really nice gold crown, old '61 gold crown in my garage, and Dave Randall set that up for me. It plays pretty perfect, and I like hitting balls on that.
Well, while we're talking about places, tell us what equipment you use.
My equipment for my table, yeah, it's just an old gold crown, but
Cue?
yeah, it's my cue is a Kenny Koo cue. Kenny out of the Bay Area made me a cue that has one of the original batches of the 314 shafts, and it's a remarkable shaft. If I ever lose it or break it, I'll have to quit playing pool. It's really irreplaceable.
Yikes.
It's at least one ball speed makes my game one ball speed better by using it. Absolutely. And it's really simple, but it's just really solid. Help bring my game to another level.
Do you have any special jump cue or any other break cue or anything that you...
I've got that sledgehammer that I use for breaking and jumping. That's about it.
Yeah, I like mine too. I think we went over the what you're thinking about when your opponent's at the table. What part of the game requires the most work for you?
Part of the game, my tempo is really quick around the table. I think if I could, I need to develop a different routine to where I walk around the table twice before I shoot, just to slow me down, and I think it settled me down a little bit. I'm usually so anxious to play and to shoot that I run from one shot to the next, and that catches up with you.
Huh. Yeah, well, it probably is a fine balance because...
It is, because I'm such a rhythm player that, to change that too much, might really hurt things.
Yeah. Do you, or did you, as you were coming along, emulate or try to be like any specific players?
Not so much, not really. For my one pocket, I've watched Chris Gentile play, and I think that, in my opinion, that he sees the game very similarly as do I. And just from watching how he, the 6 or 8 matches that I've seen him play.
Yeah. Does it help you to watch players that have on the other scope that have a very different style? And who would those players be?
Well, the power game, like Scott Frost and whatnot, is not something that I don't know if it's not my cup of tea. I'd rather kind of nudge balls around and maneuver my opponent to do certain things as opposed to trying to make it all happen at once.
Yeah.
But I can respect his success, but it's it's not how I'm built. Amazing for as fast as I play, how it doesn't reflect that in my one pocket game. I don't think.
Right.
That speed.
Right. Steve has a question.
Speaking of one pocket, do you have a certain player that you have ever seen that amazed you the way they played one pocket?
Absolutely.
A certain tournament or match?
Efren Reyes, every match I've ever watched. Tony Chohan, oh my God, probably one of the greatest matches that I've ever seen was Tony Chohan and Santos at Family Billiards, and they were playing in the finals. And I mean, it's been quite a few years ago. I'm still shaking my head over of the ability, the creativity, the ball placement. It was so off the charts. I would have the way that Tony played that night. Yeah, he could have played anybody that has ever played the game and would have roasted him. It was so awesome.
Wow.
I've never seen, and Santos would come back and turn it back around, and it was a lot of back and forth. It's not like excuse me, it's not like Tony ran him over. In the end, he overpowered him. It was the best one pocket finals match that I've ever seen.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought it up because Tony's watching.
Tony, send me some clothes, medium.
Stacy, I asked who your favorite player is to watch in anything.
Favorite player to watch?
Or does it matter? Does
No,
it depend more on the game?
not so much. I really, Efren Reyes is the greatest. I like watching him play. Just because he tends to do things that you don't see everybody do, and he just sees things a little differently, and is really, in my opinion, the most creative pool player that I've ever watched. So I always kind of tune into Efren.
Where do you see your game right now and in the future?
Well, I'm playing well. I'm really playing a couple of hours a week. As a parent, it's really low for me. I'm not, it's just, life is short, so you got to get them in while you can. I hope to maybe hit some balls later tonight. Got a tournament coming up the 1st and 2nd of October in Tacoma at Malarkey's.
Yeah.
So I want to be ready for that and try to be fluid.
Yeah. Absolutely. What would you like to see different about the sport if you could wave a magic wand?
I think I mentioned this before that when I was in the Bay Area and they ran that USPPA system, and there were quite a few different places around the Bay Area that would hold USPPA events, and then the Family Billiards on the first Monday and first Thursday or something like that of the month, they would have much larger prize for first place in particular. Usually around $600 and $700 for a one-night tournament. It was pretty good.
Wow.
But because of that USPPA system, you would have 40, 50, 60, 70 players on a weeknight that would be, trying to get in to playing these events. And it seemed like it was like that. If you didn't get 40 or better, it was a slow night.
Wow.
So for whatever it was worth, that system really seemed to be working.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I don't know if that would be the answer or not, but I know that at the time it was pretty successful.
I know that it seemed like just at times I felt it, or other better players have felt it, that it has been kind of a punishment to be at a higher level. Have you ever felt that too, and in what way?
Well, there's been quite a few places where I played and spent a lot of time playing, and then and you play and you practice and you strive to get better, and I finally got to be a grandmaster, and then it was like, well, sorry, but you can't play here and you can't play there, and which is, but it's too bad. I understand the reasoning. Ringo's out in Beaverton when they used to hold tournaments and had the Valentine's Open and all these different events, and they were open to everyone, and they brought in a lot of people to play, and for whatever reason the management there decided that they were going to have B and below, or not all the A players play, and it seemed like it was the beginning of the end for their events, and I mean, they just kind of eventually got out of pool.
Yeah.
So I don't know if pool was bad for them, or by changing that, it just changed the. I know that when I was always striving to play better, I wanted to play the best players. I wanted to learn from them, and and they kind of take that away from the up and coming players. From not if you're only playing with players that are at a certain level, the cream of the crop is going to rise to the top there, but it's just not a lot of exposure. It's not as good for the game, I don't think.
Right. So I'm winding down in my questions. So audience, if you have any questions that you want to get in here for Bob, please make sure and chime those in here soon. Do you use any type of aiming system, or
let's see, well, just I kind of use a ghost ball at times. I'll look at connecting contact points on the balls. Usually it is probably the most effective for me, just visualizing that. I typically spin the ball a lot on most shots, and so I'm always having to calculate the amount of arc coming into the ball, the amount of throw that's being imparted. So, a lot of times it's more of a feel than it is an actual aiming point.
right? So a lot of that's internalized over experience and playing around.
I think that if you if you get into rhythm and you're fluid, and you don't have any hesitation in your elbow, your arm, so to speak, that then it'll transfer, and you'll be successful. So.
One of the things that I've found interesting in interviewing you, when I've interviewed other players, and they talk about starting when they're young and the amount of hours that they put in, and in questioning you, I haven't got the sense that you really had those times or periods of time where it was hour after hour after hour on the table. So how do you account, you think, for being able to reach the skill level that you have?
Oh, thank you. Well, it seems like for most of my adult life, I always contended that that on an average, I put in 10 hours a week. And I thought that was pretty close to reality. And that was probably true up until, maybe 5 or so years ago.
Sure.
And, just different priorities.
Yeah.
So, but I don't, I enjoy the game just as much as I ever have. I would like to still bring my game to, I think I can improve my play. I don't think I played my best pool yet. So, so that's one of the great things about playing pool. A buddy of mine went back to Detroit a few years ago and played this 82-year-old one-pocket player. A legend. I forget the guy's name. Was it Jew Paul or somebody like that? But and he, and went back there and played him and said he beat him up. And so the guy could be 80 years old and still play jam up one pocket.
Did you ever have a nickname?
Let's see. Zack Attack is about
Sounds appropriate.
They were Schumacher, I think, started that, if I'm not mistaken. But that's about it.
Well, thank you very much for sitting down with us again.
Hey, this is it. We're done. Thank you.
All right.
It was
Thank
fun.
you. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.